Welcome back to another episode of Straight Facts. I'm joined as ever on another special Tuesday with Lee Gunner, who is flying high, top of the league. How you doing, Golden Child?
I'm good, man. I'm good. I'm very good. It's a lovely, beautiful day today, man. It's touching 32 degrees here today, Terry.
Yeah, it's not that warm here.
Yeah, I've seen the weather app for London, and it's just grey, rain, 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 grey, rain, grey. Mate, get on the plane. Like, literally, why are you living there?
Yeah, I know. I do ask myself that question sometimes. I do ask myself that question. Viewers, hope you're well. Let us know where you're watching from around the world and what is the weather like. I'd like to know. Sunny, rainy, cold, horrible. Let us know right now in the comments section below. Of course, we're live this evening after the big Champions League night. Napoli coming to Anfield. Yes, Napoli coming to Anfield, and of course Spurs away against Marseille. Actually, no, Spurs at Liverpool away. No, Liverpool are at home. They are at home.
Yeah.
So
That's
that's happening tonight.
Arsenal reserves or Arsenal
Yeah.
CT, don't they?
They do. I want to ask you, actually, there's a good talking point to start with, actually. We are going to get onto Arsenal a little bit later. We're going to talk Reece Nelson. We're going to talk a little bit of Saka being protected. So any questions you've got around Arsenal, we'll kind of come to them a bit later. Make sure like buttons are being smashed as well. What did the super chat say? Terry, hair is looking good. Lee, which players do you want Arsenal to get in January? We'll come to the January, the Arsenal question a little bit later. Thank you for the compliments on the hair. Yeah, it's looking all right, mate. It's looking all right. It's going for another shed at the minute. That's not a garden shed. That's just shedding of hair, in case anyone's wondering. But I wanted to ask you, Spurs away at Marseille tonight. And this is the madness. I love football scripts. Today is the 1-year anniversary of Antonio Conte being appointed. They could go through to the knockout stages. They could be knocked out of the Champions League tonight with a defeat. What's going to happen on the anniversary? Spurs going to bottle it tonight, or are they going through to those knockout stages? What you saying?
It's just a flip of a coin, isn't it? Like, real talk, it's a flip of a coin. Marseille are very good. They've not been as impressive this season, maybe because Saliba's not in defence. But yeah, man, when you've got Alexis Sanchez on the pitch, even a near finished Alexis Sanchez, he's still a problem, isn't he? And it's Tottenham. I see his interview where he said he always loved playing Tottenham, beating Tottenham, scoring against Tottenham. So he's going to be up for it, man. He's going to be up for it. Guendouzi as well. It's going to be a good game. I'm actually looking forward to watching that game because I didn't know it was Antonio Conte's 1 year.
I didn't know until today. I saw Chris Cowling tweet it out. I knew it was around November time. I didn't realize it was the 1st of November. That's according to a tweet I read. I mean, I didn't go and verify it myself, but it's about a year. Like either way, it's about a year.
But yeah, it's interesting because their fans, Tottenham fans, they're like kind of on the fence at the moment. They're ready to start tweeting out Conte out and that, and they're like one more loss pushes them over the edge, I think. So it'd be funny if they are Spursy tonight and end up getting knocked out and ended up in the Europa League or something. They could even end up bottom, couldn't they? Can they end up bottom of the group?
I think they can end up. Look, I'm just looking at the group now. They theoretically could, I believe. So right now they're top. Yeah, they could. If Marseille beat them and if Frankfurt beat Sporting Lisbon, then Tottenham would... No. They can't. They can come third. I don't think they can... Oh, it depends on
right.
I think...
You're right.
No, I think... Actually, what I think it goes down to... So it's done on points and then goal difference. Yeah. No, they would go below Sporting Lisbon because it isn't on goal difference. Sporting Lisbon beat them and drew with them, so they would come bottom because of head-to-heads. So, yeah, they could. So if Frankfurt beats Sporting and Marseille beats Spurs come bottom of the group, I believe. So
No, Terry. If Frankfurt beats Sporting, then Tottenham are still 1 point ahead.
Oh, yeah, they are. Yeah, I'm an idiot. The third then. Sorry.
Third. So they could
I saw the one. Yeah, sorry, my mistake. You're right. Yeah,
so they could either get
1-0 Lee. 1-0 Lee.
Could either get through, go in the Europa League, and they could all be tweeting Conte out tonight, or they could all be tweeting, we're in the qualifying round, the knockout stages of the Champions. It's so in the balance. It's mad. And the thing is with that football club's a laughing stock anyway, Terry. I say this all the time. It's why I don't see them as our rivals. They're a laughing stock. They've got all the chest in the world and they don't win anything. Right? They've got a quality manager. I don't care whether people say he's finished and washed and he ain't that great and all that. He is a quality manager. right? And I've said this to a load of Tottenham fans the other day. If at the end of the season he plays this style of football all season, and at the end of it they win a trophy, will any of them Spurs fans be crying about the style of play? They won't. So why are you crying about the style of play now? Yeah, what do they want as a fan base? Because they've gone down the route of Martin Yol. They've gone down the route of AVB. They've had one day Ramos, who was the last manager to win them anything, and that was when 2008. I didn't have a 5-head then; I had a 4-head. Do you know what I mean? You had proper locks of hair as well back then, Terry, before you transplant.
I know.
Yeah, and then they went down the route of Poch playing nice football. Oh, it's beautiful on the eye, but you didn't win anything. Yeah, then you've gone down the Jose route to win them trophies. They sack him when he gets them to a final in his first season. Then they get Nuno in, sack him after, 7 games, 8 games, something like that. Now they've got Conte in. Where do they go if they sack him? What do they actually do? Where do they want to be? What does Tottenham as a board and fan base want for their club? Because if they want to win trophies, if they do, well, they ain't showing it because they're not going out splashing hundreds of millions to try and do it. They're going out and getting the managers. They've gone out and got Jose, whether you think he's washed or not. Well, he left there and won a cup at Roma. Yeah, he won the Conference League at Roma, so he weren't completely washed, was he? Right, and then you've got Conte in there, who left Inter Milan as a champion to go to Tottenham. So if they don't win anything this season with him, and they decide that we want to sack him even before the end of the season or the end of the season, where do they go? What do they want? Do they want sexy football with no trophies, or do they want somebody who might shithouse his way to the title or to a cup?
Well, this is it. I mean, I totally get that argument. I think Spurs fans are the most confused fans at the moment when it comes to their football club. And what I mean by that is every couple of days there's a narrative, and their big cheerleader, the biggest Spurs voice on social media at the moment and the airways is Jamie O'Hara. And like, he's out yesterday. There's a media agenda against us. I'm like, bro, you literally work, barring Sky, I would say TalkSport are now the biggest content creating media platform in England. I don't know about how global their videos trend, but in England right now, like TalkSport and Sky dominate. They've actually overtaken all the YouTubers as well without the views they get, right? We already know that. And they've got Jamie O'Hara, who's one of their most trending and most popular pundits, and he's always on their side. Until last week when they draw, and it's like I think we've been found out, we're too one-dimensional. And then 3 days later, after a comeback win against Bournemouth, he's like, the media's out to get us. I'm like, bro, you are the guy saying you've been found out. You are the ones. Spurs fans moan probably more about Conte than any rival does. And look, tonight's an interesting one because they should go through. On paper, they have a better squad and a better team and a better manager than Marseille. But Spursy are Spursy are Spursy are Spursy. And is that going to come through? And I think if they go out of the Champions League, I think they're worried about even making top 4 this year, with Man United improving, with Newcastle improving, and Newcastle will go again in January. So I said the other day, I think Newcastle will tail off. I don't know why it eluded my brain. I had an absolute a brain fart moment where I didn't think that Newcastle would also go into the if Newcastle was sitting 3rd or 4th, even 5th, and just behind top 4 in January, they're going to go and spend money. They're going to go out there and go, right, we'll buy people.
They won't find it difficult to get players in January, Terry, that's for sure.
No, they won't,
because they've got the money.
They've got the money, but people also know the trajectory and the direction that they're going in. There is a long-term plan as a club. And I think your point on Tottenham's true. Having Antonio Conte will bring you players. But Steven Gerrard was a name, a respected name, not so much as a manager, but for where he is. That's how Aston Villa were able to attract certain players, i.e. Philip Coutinho, how they were able to get other people like him early on. Does Coutinho want to stay? Do you remember having Ancelotti when he was at Everton and the likes of James Rodriguez wanted to be there? That man dipped as soon as Ancelotti was out the door because he didn't want to be at Everton. He wanted to play for Carlo Ancelotti. And I think that's the issue that Tottenham might find themselves with, is that there is a project at Newcastle people are very interested in. Man United, Arsenal are Arsenal. Chelsea are struggling right now, but I'm still sure Chelsea are going to turn things around even this season. There's a massive night tonight for Tottenham, and I fancy him to do it. If I'm going to put my money where my mouth is and put a bet down, I would say Spurs to win on the night. I think it would be a really big night for them. But there is still that part of me in the back of my mind that says, hedge your bet, though. Hedge your bet with a couple of quid on them to go out tonight, because that would be the Tottenham thing to do, and they've only won 5 of their last 11 games in all competitions. And when you look at the opponents that they've beaten, it's been a lot of the minnows. Anyone half decent, they've either drawn with them or lost to them. So if Marseille are on it tonight and Marseille are playing, they're playing the best version of themselves, it's going to be a big game, a big and a very, very hard game for them indeed.
I think they'll get through, but I don't think they'll win. I think it'll be a draw.
Mate, draw's enough for them. Yes, a draw would be enough for them, because
if they go with that mindset, they'll probably lose. If they go
Well,
with we only need a draw. We see that the other day against PSV.
They play to draw so much, and I think that for me would be the frustration as a Spurs fan. And Spurs fans ain't sold on this either. But you're right; they don't know where they want to be. They're almost, when they're winning, they love Antonio Conte. When they drop some points or have some bad performances, you see, for me, their true feelings about how he plays football come out. They say, like, your friends reveal how they really feel about you when you're drunk. Football fans reveal their true character when they're angry, as a general rule. When people get angry, they tend to lash out and say what they really think about players or managers. When they're calm, it's always that towing the party line. So yeah, I think Spurs fans are very nervous about tonight as well. But viewers, do you think they're going to go through or go out? I don't care, win, lose or draw, doesn't matter. Through or out, get that into the live comment section for us now. Make sure you're smashing the like button for us also. Liverpool, though, we know Spurs are in the top 4 right now. Newcastle are in the top 4 right now. United 5th, Chelsea 6th, Liverpool out of sight. Back-to-back defeats against Forest and Leeds. They actually go. You actually look at it with them, and they're in a little bit of trouble. They are in a little bit of trouble. They play Napoli tonight.
They're in a lot of trouble, Terry. Let's not underdo it. They're in big trouble. They're in big trouble.
How big?
Massive, mate. If you look at the squad that they've got, real talk, they've been winging it for time. I've said this on here. Yeah, they've been winging it for time. And when you look at that squad, I've said this before, Terry, and I don't want to sound like I keep repeating myself with it. They need to go and spend big dough, right? And Virgil van Dijk, as good as he's been over the last 5 years, he's finished. He's done. He's not anywhere near the player he was before that injury. And when you're that age and you've done that much mileage on the pitch, and you get a big injury like that, it's very, very, very difficult to come back from. Yeah, which is why he's struggling pretty much every game. You look at Trent, he's just rubbish. Yeah, Gomez, he ain't the guy. He's been there how long? He come through the academy, right? And I think he made his debut 3.5 years ago. Has he actually kicked on in 3 years?
Who?
No.
Did you mention, sorry?
Joe Gomez.
No, I think they bought him very young from Charlton, but yeah.
Oh, okay, fair enough.
It wasn't quite yet, but when you buy someone like that young,
hasn't kicked on and improved.
No, you're right. Yeah.
Harvey Elliott's got to be one of the most overrated players they have. Yeah, real talk. Like, he's a nice, clean and tidy passer of the ball and all that. Who cares, mate? What do you actually do? How do you affect the game?
Like you've got players that are stat padders, right?
Like Ozil was and Odegaard, yeah.
You've also got the eye test merchants. So the players that look good doing absolutely nothing. They look good doing nothing. But do you know what I mean? So I agree with you on that. They haven't kicked on. These youngsters haven't gone on to the level. They were talking last year at the beginning of the season. I know he's had injuries, but Curtis Jones, they were talking about him. The videos are out there. Go and check, as the new Steven Gerrard. And for me, he's not the new Steven Gerrard. He's the new Jay Spearing. He's Jay.
You know what? I was going to say Jay Spearing.
He's Jay Spearing. That is the level of Curtis Jones. The difference is between Jay Spearing and Curtis Jones is Jay Spearing came into a team not as good as this Liverpool side. And the reason I say that is this: Man United had quite a number of academy players that came through during the times of our peak sides and played well and contributed to seasons. Darren Gibson, as an example. Chris Eagles, as an example. They came on and scored goals. They helped us win games against certain teams. They even had some really good moments individually themselves, especially Darren Gibson. We even had people like John O'Shea, who was a good little squad player. As soon as he left and went to Sunderland, you saw his real level. And that is what Curtis Jones is. Curtis Jones is so overrated. It's unbelievable. Just because he looks techie, but he doesn't do anything. He really doesn't. He got those 4 assists in a Champions League game, and that was it. He's going to be Gerrard. He's going to go to the next level. Him, Harvey Elliott, Gomez, Trent, all of them are massively overrated. And Klopp's system is now struggling because FSG have not invested correctly to keep up, to maintain the levels. And we're now seeing from Klopp's team what you kind of got in the early days. Still some good attacking elements to their side, but leaking goals far too regularly. Van
Mm.
Dijk is looking
Finished, isn't he?
meaty.
He's finished, mate. He's done.
Mate, them knees, then that knee injury has done him. It's kind of weird. It kind of took a while to come out.
It's
Fabinho,
sad because he's been a
one.
very good player, a very good centre back here. But listen, he plays for Liverpool, so I don't really care. Like, I'm a football fan. It's nice to watch other players play well and see good players playing football. Yeah, but he ain't ever going to be the player he was. Yeah, like real talk, he's never coming back to greatness. Yeah, then you've got Robertson. Like, again, massively overrated because he's basically the Scottish version of Trent. Run down the wing and just keep spamming crosses, which is cool when it works. Yeah, but defensively, I don't think he's that great. Yeah, he's better than Trent defensively, but so are you, Terry. It's not difficult. So when you look at that back line, right, the goalkeeper's quality, I think he's a good goalkeeper, right? But then you've got an injured or finished Van Dijk. Matip's always in and out the team with injury. So is Konate, who's not been there that long and seems to be injured pretty much every game. Right, then you go into left back and right back, we just spoke about. Then you go midfield. Harvey Elliott ain't the guy. Yeah. Fabinho, I mean, real talk. I thought Granit Xhaka had a real slow turning circle. Yeah. Like this guy, it takes him an hour to turn. He's so wooden, it is unbelievable.
It's almost.
Then you've got Oxlade-Chamberlain, Keita, James Milner.
Yeah.
I mean, none of these are getting in any top 6 team, Terry. Real talk.
Mate,
none of them.
And the fall off, though, like some of them I get. Like Fabinho is an interesting one because a year ago, nobody would have laughed at you if you said best DM in the league, one of the best in Europe. The fall off has been huge. And part of this is on Klopp, but I don't mean it detrimentally because he plays, they train and they play with such an intensity that you are going to burn out quicker. And it's one of the things that I said about, I got into this debate a little while ago. Pep does it and Pep can maintain it because Man City will continue to invest and invest and invest and invest so they can replenish and refresh the squad. Squads are now bigger and deeper than they were 10 years ago, 15 years ago. So the reason why Wenger's best teams and Jose's best teams and Fergie's best teams didn't get, by the way, some of those teams did get to like low 90, mid 90 points. High 80s as well. But the reason they didn't go to the higher echelons of the high 90s and the Centurions is they didn't have the squads to do it. Plus, they didn't burn themselves out. There were times where it was like, okay, look, it's 7 points clear at the top. We can afford to rest the team this weekend. We've got a big Champions League game. So you drop some points. That's how football was back then. Pep does it, and Pep doesn't. I'm not even dissing Pep. Pep does it, but can get away with it because his club will invest. Jurgen Klopp has burnt these players out with his style, but that isn't a problem because Klopp's job isn't to prolong the life of these players. It's to get Liverpool to win, right? So it doesn't matter if Fabinho at 29, 30 is past his best because he's run himself into the ground. It's down to FSG to turn around and go, right, so we're going to go out now and buy you the next Fabinho.
But that's also down to the manager to be knocking on their door and saying, I want this. Is he doing that? Because all I hear, Terry, and sorry to cut you off, mate. All I hear him in interviews after games is make excuse about the grass, the colour of the sky, the rain. Yeah, they didn't water the pitch. They didn't do this. Oh, this. We've done this. I watched a video that you put out. I think it was a couple of days ago, where you said, that Liverpool basically, Klopp's basically just like, protecting the ownership, right? And I was going to write a comment in there and I thought, no, I'll save it. Yeah, I'll save it for the show. You said Klopp's protecting the ownership. He shouldn't be doing that. He should be outing them. He should be exposing them. Not in them exact words, but that was what you were trying to get at, yeah? Right? And you said that he should be demanding more money from the board, etc., etc. So what I wanted to ask you, which I was going to write, what's the difference between that with Klopp at Liverpool and Arsene Wenger at Arsenal when he was doing the same, protecting the ownership and protecting the board, yeah, whilst lying to the fans and blaming everything else? Because this is exactly what Klopp is doing. He's blaming everything else because the club have not given him the money and he's happy to not get the money, if that makes sense. He's happy just to go out and face the media and, I'm not going to stick it on them because they're still paying me a fortune. Yeah, and if we can maybe get away with one player in January, yeah, then it's cool, but I'll lie and I'll make up excuses.
Well,
We heard Wenger do that for 10 years, Terry.
well,
So what's the difference
depends.
between him and Klopp?
So the difference I would say is this: I think that Wenger had more power at Arsenal than Jurgen Klopp has at Liverpool. I think in the modern day game, managers do not. They may have a big say, and the longer they're there, the more they win, the more power they get. But I think Wenger, like Fergie was doing, was running the football club. However, both Wenger and Fergie were still hamstrung by their owners and the decisions. Wenger, I think, kind of made some of his where I think Fergie wanted to spend money but couldn't, but still towed the party line. But Fergie was still winning, though. So we weren't investing right, but we were still winning. And ironically, as we started spending money after he left because the new TV deal money came into fruition, so the money was then there, we just spent it incorrectly. But you got to get the balance right. So I don't expect Jurgen Klopp to come out and say the owners are tight-fisted bastards. Equally, like between him and Liverpool spinning this BS to the media that we're going to go, oh, we didn't get Tchouaméni, but we go for Jude Bellingham next year, and we only go for our number one targets. And there's an element of that approach that I respect. You shouldn't be going for the player that's 12th on your list. But equally,
but was Darwin Núñez really their number one, Terry? And if he was, there's an issue there.
But I think he is. I think Darwin Núñez was one of their number one targets.
But
the
was
amount
that
of money,
Klopp's number one, or was that a club saying we're getting him for you?
So that will be on Klopp. Picking the profile of player is, for me, is massively Klopp and the way the club works. But do I truly believe Klopp was happy to just have that striker? No. Is there a bit of arrogance of we'll get Jude Bellingham next year? Yeah, there is a bit of arrogance there, and I know people want to blame Klopp for that. But at the same time, what Man City would do is this: they go, right, well, we need a midfielder now, though. I know that Jude Bellingham's not available till next year. Let's bring someone in. Now you can argue they did with Rafa Melu, but that was far too late.
But again, a player that Klopp didn't even want, and even said he's one of the worst players I've ever seen in training. He even come out and said that. I was saying to them that something to that effect is the worst, but he didn't want him, and that was a player that Arsenal were linked to. And again, this is why I always find it funny. And I know fans, it doesn't matter what team you support in that Premier League, yeah, fans will always make out they know of the player and they watch the league every week, and this player's great and he'll fit our system because he's now linked to your club. I understand that. We were linked to that Artemelo, and I said, well, I don't watch Italian football, so I don't know how good he is. Yeah, no, I've seen all of our fans, and then I see all the Liverpool fans. He was linked to Liverpool. Liverpool fans, oh, yes, this is the guy. And then their manager comes out inside 1 week and says he ain't the guy. He's one of the worst I've ever seen. Hang on, all these millions of people that are sitting there pretending they watch Italian football and watch him, making out he's great. One of the best managers in the world saying he's shit.
Well, this happened with the centre back, Turkish guy they bought in, Kabak.
Yes.
It was spun as scouted him for years. Part of our process. This isn't a panic buy. The same as Artemelo and everything else. Since Michael Edwards has left Liverpool have regressed. Now, interestingly, this is because everyone spouts nonsense when they say you'll never get another Fergie at a football club. You can, but it's not the managers. Fergie's biggest achievement at the club is what goes unspoken about. It's how he run the club behind the scenes. Everyone can go and get themselves a top-class footballing director who can stay there 10, 15, 20 years if they treat them right, pay them right, compensate them, and keep them motivated. The way you run your football club, in some respects, is more important than what you're doing on the pitch. And look at Newcastle as an example. Yes, they've spent money, but they haven't signed very many players that on paper you would say have moved the needle. Like that, you've got Bruno Guimaraes as an example. The rest of their signings, though, how many of them genuinely, maybe Botman could be an argument, but how many of them genuinely would other top six clubs want in their squads? I would argue not very many, right? But the difference is at Newcastle is that every player can see what's going on behind the scenes, how they're now being run. This club used to have to take ice baths in paddling pools outside. Like the training ground was decrepit. The stadium hadn't been renewed in a long time. The standards of the club were so low. This seeps into a training ground and dressing room along the lines, and we've all worked in environments like it. And the younger viewers may not get this yet, but my example I would give to you is that teacher that doesn't ever discipline you, or a parent or an auntie or an uncle that looks after you that's a little bit soft and lets you get away with being naughty. You misbehave. It becomes part of your behavior and part of your culture at school, at home. and or in the workplace. Those Newcastle players are now going up to another level because they see the club is changing and that low standards are not acceptable. So I'm not suggesting that Liverpool have lowered their standards in every area and are now outside having ice baths in wheelie bins. I'm suggesting that they're now looking at the business going on behind the scenes, who's making the decisions, and they're saying this club isn't serious. And when the players start to feel that the club isn't serious, there's a domino effect, and it will manifest itself on the football pitch. The biggest issue at Liverpool has been not replacing Michael Edwards. The second biggest issue is not investing enough money in high-quality players. Then you move into the pitch, and where Klopp has to take some of the blame, and the biggest amount of blame for me, is he hasn't adapted his style to accommodate what he actually has as a squad. He's trying to play like it's 2019, 2020 again. And yes, that's only a couple of years ago. But in sport, when a player goes past a certain age barrier, those years are long. They're long.
Manchester United under Fergie were the masters of it. Yeah? Like you signed Berbatov, he got a golden boot. The following season, barely played, benched. Yeah, and then gone. See you later. And Fergie was the master of constantly evolving a team. Yeah, and he knew and he understood that number one, the aim of elite sport is to win. Yeah, and he mastered that. Number two, he mastered the evolution stage of it, because he would get you in. And you said something a minute ago about about Fabinho, and Klopp don't care about the player's career after Liverpool and whatever. He wants to win now. Yeah, but the problem is he's gone away from wanting to win now because he's relied on players that are past it, that are not good enough. I mean, why is Oxlade-Chamberlain still at that football club? Like, real talk. Why is Cater still at that football club? Like, neither of them ever really played. James Milner, you can argue and say, okay, cool. You can throw him at right back. You can put him in goal. You can put him anywhere you want. Yeah, that guy, cool. Their biggest cock-ups this summer, yeah, was signing an £85 million striker who's just rubbish. I don't care what anyone tells me, Terry. That guy is not very good. Right? They wasted 85 million quid on him when they already had Firmino, who's like years better than him, right? And is part of the original front three at that club with Salah, Mane and him. You could have played him, and he scored goals again this season when he's played. Yeah, he scored against us. Yeah, he scored quite a lot of goals for Firmino this season. They should have gone out there with that 85 million and spent that on midfielders. They should have been getting rid of Oxlade-Chamberlain, should have been getting rid of Keita, should have been getting rid of Henderson, should have been getting rid of some of the younger players that they've got in midfield that are never going to be good enough. Yeah, going and loaning them out if you have to. Get a little loan fee. They could have sold Ox for about 5-10 million quid.
Bro, yeah. I agree with you, but this is Michael Edwards at the club. Michael Edwards. I always get confused. This is the guy that got 20 odd million pound for Jordan Ibe. This is the guy that got over 20 million pound for Solanke. This element, we had David Gill at our club doing great business. You guys had Dean at your club, and it wasn't that he made Wenger better. It's a team effort. You know, when certain people leave organizations, things can, when Dana White got bought out of the UFC, they kept Dana White running it. They were essentially like, listen, we'll pay you we'll buy you out, we'll pay you a big salary, but we still want you to run it because we just want to give you our money to make it even bigger and better, but we want the profits. You'll just get a salary, and there's probably a bonus structure in there too. That happens with a lot of people, a lot of tech companies. Microsoft or Apple buys them out. The guy that fans it, sometimes they leave, sometimes they continue running it as the CEO, but they're not the owner anymore. There's less risk to them because it isn't their money. They're now investing. They're on a big wage, but essentially, but you maintain continuity. At Liverpool, they lost Edwards. This was a guy that would generate money out of nowhere for pure average football players, and that was reinvested. Bruce is another. They got a huge amount of money for Bruce. So yeah, the way Liverpool runs a problem, and you are right. There is a big decline at Liverpool right now, and City are going to stay where they are. They're going to keep competing for the years to come. Newcastle are on their way, and they're even competing for the top four faster than I thought they would. They are there now. That's two teams, right, that Liverpool have got to overtake or keep up with. You've obviously got Arsenal, and we're going to move on to in a minute, who are firing on all cylinders at the moment. Chelsea are building that structure that we're just talking about. They are looking to put that in place, and they're a little bit of a mess right now. And that's partly because you've got a squad full of players from 2 or 3 managers with 2 or 3 philosophies overlapping from the previous ownership. But you can tell what they're trying to do is build something clean and pure, and they're going to be back soon. And Man United are progressing nicely as well. Spurs are there. They're already in the top 4. They're doing their thing. If they stay with Antonio Conte, who knows? Liverpool are in trouble. They're not going to drop into 8th, 9th, 10th. But they are not making the top 4 as it stands this year if they don't make significant investments in January. And that's what it is. They need to go out in January, and I'm going to throw names out here they might not be able to get. But this is what they should do in January, is go into the window and go, boom, there's 90 million pounds. Give me Declan Rice now. Now, forget waiting until the summer. Offer 90 million quid, 100 million pound. Go and buy him. Go out there in the transfer market and go, right, go to Newcastle that are on the way up and try and convince someone like Bruno Guimaraes to join you. They might say no, but you're still Liverpool right now. Liverpool right now are still more attractive than Newcastle. They're Liverpool bloody football club. Go, listen, talk to the agent. Guimaraes, can we get you? There are so many players. You had West Ham have signed Paqueta this year. He looks really good. Liverpool could have got him. You've got Ruben Neves that's out there and seemingly available as an example. You've got Lissandro Trossard as an attacking option, who it looks like Arsenal might go in for. Sorry, Chelsea might go in for. He's only got 6 months left on his contract. You're Liverpool Football Club. Go and get him. He's ripped you apart 2 years running. He would be an amazing option to have up front as an example. There's so many things that Liverpool could do to save this. But if they don't, and they have a very average or non-existent January, with the trajectories of everybody else, they're in big trouble this year and going into the next. And it leads around to the point I made in the title. If they don't invest in Klopp, I know a German journalist for Sky today has said that he will not quit or be sacked. I'm telling you now that is BS. The media will say no way he quits, no way he walks, because that is what they're being briefed by Liverpool and by Jurgen Klopp. But if they don't back him, he is not going to stay at a club that is suddenly going to go from winning leagues and Champions Leagues, nearly winning a treble, to suddenly competing for the top 6. He will walk. He will quit if they don't give him money. Like, he has to. He's Jurgen Klopp.
I disagree.
Top 2 managers in the world.
I disagree. Totally disagree. He's got. Tell you, you've only got to look at his time at Liverpool. How much has he spent? Yeah, before this season, how much has he spent in 6 years? 500 mil,
600 mil, something like that. Yeah.
That's including this season. So he's done less than 100 million a season since he's been there, right? So there's no track record that Liverpool are number one going to go and blow a load of dough under him. Number two, there's no track record of him threatening or looking like he's going to walk away from a football club, because even when they've spent 100 million or 80 million on a striker and all of this, they've still not spent a massive amount of money in comparison to Man City, in comparison to Arsenal, in comparison to Man United over the same time period. Like their fans were always putting out the table. Oh, look, we're not even in the top 10 in the league for spend under Klopp since Klopp's been here. Look at the job he's doing. Nobody was ever crying about FSG then, were they? Yeah, but now it's all gone sideways. It's FSG's fault. Yeah, so I think Klopp's doing exactly the same as what Wenger was doing at Arsenal. The only difference is, Wenger did have more of a say than Klopp, but Klopp ain't dumb. Yeah, what club would get Klopp right now? Like, big club in Europe. Yeah, because he ain't going to end up at Barcelona. He ain't going to end up at Real Madrid. They've already got Xavi and they've got Ancelotti. So there's 2 of the biggest clubs on the planet he ain't going to. Man City, he ain't going there. Arsenal, he ain't coming. Man United, he ain't coming. Chelsea, he ain't coming. So where's he going? If he leaves, where is he going?
Oh, no, I do get that. I mean, it's a hard one.
Is a shout
I do get that. I think what you got, the way I look at it is this. Yes, they haven't been the biggest spenders, but they spent big in the early years. They got to the top and were with City, and everybody else was struggling for one reason or another, was struggling and not really competing with them. It will look very different to Jurgen Klopp if, for instance, Tottenham, Chelsea, Arsenal, Newcastle are all better than them, spending more than them, being run better than them, and are all finishing in front of them in the league. I think Jurgen Klopp, he is the second best manager in the world, in my opinion. And I think he'll look at that and go, I just can't compete anymore. I know he's always moaned that he couldn't compete, but the advantage he had is that a lot of the other top 6 weren't very good. And Newcastle at that point were a club in crisis under Mike Ashley. So I think that changes the situation somewhat. His team were able to keep competing, and they did spend money in the early days. You've got to remember, 70 world record fee at the time for Van Dijk, world record fee for Alisson. They argue and say, well, they raised that through the sale of Coutinho. But while they were working on those deals, they were trying to keep Coutinho. So they would have still spent that money, in my opinion. It worked out to be a nice narrative. They built this squad and spent money. And you also got to remember, they spent a huge amount of money on salary. A lot of that was bonus based. So if you actually look at the total money spent on players, agent fees, transfer fees, salary, up until the summer of 2021, between Klopp and Pep, since they've both been in England, Pep had only spent in totality about 80 to 90 million pound more. So a lot of money's been invested in keeping these players at the football club. I just think FSG are going through a period to say, all right, we'll rebuild, but we're going to rebuild cheaply and slowly again. And I just don't know if Klopp's got the the hunger to spend another 3 or 4 years waiting for a team to become as good.
No, I hear that. So what you're saying is they could have had their golden era.
Well,
And it could be done, and that's it. One Premier League.
The thing is with golden eras, bruv, is this. They are partly dependent on how good or bad other teams are. And I'll give you an example. Fergie was great, won 13 Premier League, not great, the best, and won 13 league titles. Liverpool Football Club played a part in that, though, by lowering their standards and ruining their football club for 30 years. There was everyone every year expected them to get back to their best. Arsenal, when us and you were like this, if your club would have spent a bit more money, you might have won a few more of our titles that we got, as an example.
Definitely.
You know, and I think that there's always been these things where your era, Fergie is the best and he deserves to be seen as the best. There's no doubt. But sometimes there's also an element of, I don't want to say luck, but timing. And what I mean by that is this. Andy Murray has 3 Grand Slams. And when he was at his best, up at like 2016, he was actually better than the Djokovic and Nadal and Federer for a very small period of time. But those 3 are the 3 greatest tennis players of all time, and they were in his era. So as good as he was, he only ended up with 3 slams. If you take one of those guys out, say you take Djokovic out as an example, I think someone like Andy Murray walks away with 7, 8, 9, 10 Grand Slams. Does that make Andy Murray a better player because he has, because in his era there was less great people? That's the argument I'm making here. Liverpool could maybe get back to being a very good team. But will they have enough power to compete with 3 or 4 or 5 excellently run teams with lots of money whose teams are playing well? That's the question. So they can probably rebuild again, but do they have enough? Where what City will do is go, right, let's push the envelope again and again and again. It's not about Klopp being good enough to manage that. It's whether FSG are willing to spend to be able to compete. And I just think maybe timing came along. And that's the difference between Fergie and Man United and Klopp and Liverpool. Man United were doing well. And when anyone came along to challenge them, they went, right, we'll fucking outspend you, or we'll match you, or we'll go to the next level. Liverpool are not prepared to do that. So timing plays a part, and that isn't taken away from anybody. But when, like in football, it isn't just like being a boxer when suddenly 3 better boxers come along. In football, your football club can actually change that by buying better people. Does that make sense? Like Andy Murray couldn't make himself a better tennis player. He was already at his peak. But Liverpool can make themselves a better football club. They can just, remember, their owners are worth 10 billion quid. They can spend as much as any owner in the Premier League because they can only inject up to £100 million a year for transfers themselves. They can do more, even more if they increase the salary themselves. They could pump in loads of money.
They could sponsor the training ground for about £500 million over 5 years, which is £500 million more in the pot.
So I don't know. For me, I kind of look at it. I just look at it along the lines of they need to start investing more money, and their fans need to demand it. Because if the Newcastle project, even if it's just the Newcastle and City project, do well over the next 5 years, if they don't spend comparatively with them to build a squad, they won't be able to compete. They just won't, because the managers that are at those clubs, the way they're running, as if City are not going to go from a Pep Guardiola to employing David Moyes. They're not going to do that. They're not going to make that mistake.
No, that's Arteta's job, isn't it? Arteta's next.
But we'll see. Viewers, what do you think? Will Jurgen Klopp quit? Will Jurgen Klopp stay? Let us know in the comments section. I'd like to get your thoughts and your feelings on that. Some super chats here. Our Barca trying to take Arteta and Edu. Well, I've not read or heard that anywhere personally, but
no, I've seen it. I've seen it.
Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah.
Does anyone genuinely believe Liverpool have a chance of signing Bellingham? I think they are out of the race, and it's now between City and Madrid. If they're not in the Champions League, they are not getting him for love.
Even if they're in the Champions League, why is he going there? He can go to any club on the planet. Why is he picking Liverpool?
Right now, that's a very good question. Joshua, great question, my friend. What would be a realistic expectation goal for Liverpool at this point this season? Realistic expectation, because of the billionaire owners they've got, the second best manager in the world, a squad that's still got some very good players in it. The expectation should still be to qualify for the Champions League. They should go into the January market and spend to improve on areas. Remember, their owners are worth billions of pounds. Like I tried to explain to someone the other day, their owners versus City's owners is a great example. City's owners is worth 22 billion. They're worth 10 billion. That's more than double. Oh my God, they're so much richer. But comparatively, they can only pump in £100 million every 3 years for transfers as owners. So when you break that down, that is like me having £10,000 in the bank and having to invest £100. So that's the level we're talking about here.
I understand, but that's too simplistic, Terry. Right? The fact is, just because they're worth 22 billion and he's worth 10 billion, that don't mean that that's Liverpool's money.
Well, but this is the point.
It's not Liverpool's money, is it?
Yes, but
it's
this is
money.
the point. Yes, but this is the point I'm making. Liverpool aren't behind Man City in spending because one owner's richer than the other per se. It's because one owner's willing to give that money to the club.
Yeah, because one owner's prepared to go and do what it takes to win at all costs. The other owner couldn't care less.
I agree. But
then the fans have to step up and stick it on the owner. But the fans are too busy telling us that the owners, our net spend.
But that's my point, bro. This isn't an unfair playing ground. All the clubs in the Prem, barring a couple, all the big boys are owned by billionaires and could all invest.
Every club
all invest. You got to remember, Man United's owners have invested zero. In fact, that's a lie. Man United's owners have taken 500 million out of the club. They've not put one penny of their own in. Do you can imagine how much money Man United would have for transfers if our owners paid our debt off?
I think the Glazers have actually taken 2 billion quid out of your club.
In totality, it's about 2 bill. About 2 bill.
2 billion. Now imagine that they spend 1 billion of that on players.
Correctly.
Yeah.
Like not these mad projects. Like all the big clubs can compete with these clubs owned by nations if their billionaire owners are willing to invest their own money into the football club, but they're not. That's why I fight back against that. It's not fair. It isn't that it's not fair. If me and you've got the same money in our bank accounts and you're willing to buy your kids whatever is needed to get them to school, give them their education, and I'm not willing to do that for my children, that isn't an unfair advantage your kids have got. It's a conscious decision I'm making. Like, I can't sit there and go, unfair because Lee spent like £1 million on his daughter's education. If I've got the same resources as you, it's my choice. And I just don't like the narrative.
But this is the thing, Terry, right? If they're not prepared to spend it, then the fans, there's only two things that can raise the standards at a football club, the ownership or the fan base. If the ownership are comfortable, then the fans are comfortable. You end up with what's happening at Liverpool and what's happened with my club for the last 15 years. Yeah.
I agree.
Yeah, we'll have a little protest. We'll walk out of a stadium on 77 minutes. That's what they did a few years back, wasn't it, Liverpool? Yeah, because they were putting the prices up. So they all stormed out against Sunderland 2-0 up on the 77th, and then Sunderland got 2 goals, which is funny. Yeah, but they stopped the price increase. So
I want to just address.
I
agree. I want to address this here. It says, Terry, you say that, but everyone criticized Roman what he used to spend. So listen, up until 2014, FFP didn't exist. So in the early Roman years and the first 2 or 3 years of City, yes, owners could spend any amount of money they want of their own money on players. That was unfair because if you didn't have a billionaire owner, you couldn't spend like that. But FFP stops it. Now, yes, there's arguments of, well, they get like inflated sponsorships. But the other 14, all it takes is 14 Premier League clubs to vote in a rule that makes sponsorship deals within a market value range. So Man United have more global fans than Newcastle. So if Newcastle suddenly got a new shirt sponsor worth 3 times as much as Man United, there's a problem there, right? It's not within market value. But the Premier League clubs don't vote for that. And my belief is they're all fucking cooking the books in one way, shape, or form. And if they bring in rules that stop cooking of the books, it might damage all of them, right? So the difference is that Roman was limited to putting in around £33 million a year of his own money towards transfers. They can put more in towards infrastructure. They can put more in towards, I believe, towards salaries of players. But all of our owners, our clubs have owners that can afford to do it, and they still wouldn't notice a penny gone from their bank accounts. You realize how rich these people are. Like, if you've got 3 billion and you've got 6 billion, unless you're trying to build rockets to go to Mars, there is no difference. Like, such an absorbent amount of money that you don't notice. If your bank account, those people had all their money in cash and 50 million came out of their bank account one day, they wouldn't notice. they wouldn't notice. Some might be anoraks like that. But viewers, let me know what you think is going to happen with Liverpool and everything else. FFP
Can I answer the question the lad said about Edu and Arteta? He said about Barcelona won them both, right? Last week, Terry, in fact, it was 2 weeks ago, about 10 days ago, there was a story leaked out to the media. I don't know where it's come from, saying that Edu has been linked to 3 unnamed football clubs. So straight away, I was like, well, why are they unnamed? If we know that he's been linked, then surely you know the clubs that he's linked to. Yeah. So that story was Arsenal putting out PR. Yeah. To test the water, to see how the fans around the world, en masse, would see Edu leaving the club. Obviously, the fan base that's the most easily pleased in the world said, oh, we've got to keep Edu, we've got to keep him. So now last week, there's talk he's getting a new contract. Funny that, isn't it? Yeah, 10 days ago, 3 unnamed clubs are linked to him. And then 6 days ago, oh, we're about to offer him a new contract. Yeah, if people ain't woken up to this yet, then come on, man. Seriously, you're beyond lost. Right now, there's talk today that Xavi at Barcelona, although Barcelona see him as the main person of the project, blah, 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 they are very open to the idea of taking Mikel Arteta. Absolute garbage. Yeah, whoever's wrote that or put that out there or leaked that out there is fishing again because we're top of the table and they might want to renew his contract again. Yeah, because we gave him a new deal last season at the end of it when we bottled top 4. And they might want to renew it even more now. And let's put him on more money. Keep hold of him because now we've got to keep the best young manager in world football. If people are not wide awake enough to see how much PR spins people and how it manipulates people, I'll give you another fine example of this, right? We're going to talk about this in a sec. I know you said backstage what we were going to run through, yeah? But I want to say this real quickly, yeah? Let me quickly find it. There it is. Is it that? There it is. Arsenal and England look like they've survived a heart-in-mouth moment with Bukayo Saka. Will they next time? Asked James Benge. The physicality that Forest applied to him from the outset is becoming the norm for Bukayo Saka. I had a look back at this season, 16 fouls on him, right? So now, all of these accounts out there with a mass following off of the back of one puppet journalist saying, I looked at Bukayo Saka's 16 fouls against him. Yeah, that's it. Yeah. So I put that on my Insta. Breaking news. Football is a contact sport. More to follow. Yeah. Look at this. That's an account that's got loads of followers. Then there's another account with 300,000 tweeting out the FA and like Bukayo Saka, he needs more protection. Well, buy him a condom then. Like real talk. Yeah, Terry. At the end of the day, that whole narrative now is flooding the internet. Because one journalist has sat there and said, I'm going to look at the 16 times Bukayo Saka's been fouled. Why has he done that? Because he went off injured the other day. I'm willing to bet you right now, Harry Kane's had more fouls on him this season than Bukayo Saka. I don't even know the stats. I haven't checked the stats. I don't even know if you can check them. But I will be willing to bet money with you right now that Harry Kane gets fouled more this season up to now than Bukayo Saka. I've seen Gabriel Jesus get fouled about 6 times in one game. So where's this narrative that, oh, they're targeting Bukayo. Oh, we can't do that. He holds puppies. Oh, it's so nice. Football's a contact sport, Terry. And any player that's in a position on the pitch that is an attacking threat is going to be targeted. Yeah. When you go into a game against a relegation fodder team, you know that they're going to go out there and stick one on him.
Just very quickly on your stat there. So Bukayo Saka is on average fouled 1.4 times per game in the Premier League. Harry Kane is fouled 1.4 times as well. Just to give you an idea of the most, Wilfried Zaha's fouled 3.3 times per game. And then both Bruno Guimaraes and Gabriel Jesus are on 2.7 fouls on them per game. James Maddison 2.5, Bruno Fernandes 2.5, Luis Diaz 2.3. So yeah, like look, from my point of view, it's this question in terms of that investigation the Arsenal fan did into watching the 16 fouls. Did he also review?
Like, sorry, he's a journalist.
Let me just, yeah. So did he also review 10 to 15 other attacking players' fouls on them this year to see whether or not Saka's treatment from other players is worse or comparative?
Of course he didn't.
Okay.
Because that's not the narrative they want to spin. The narrative is poor Bukayo Saka keeps getting kicked every game. And eventually England and Arsenal are going to lose this player for a sustained period of time, which means that Arsenal and England are worse off. So now every single puppet Arsenal fan with a cult following online is now putting out this narrative of, oh, the FA need to look at this and the Premier League need to look at this because it's unfair that Bukayo Saka keeps getting kicked. So, yeah, maybe they should be more worried about Bukayo Saka diving than getting kicked, mate.
Did you not think that? Did you not think that Saka, the fact that they were deliberately sort of trying to take him out the game with the way they were tackling him, do you not feel that at all in that game?
Terry, that's football, man. I didn't watch that game thinking, oh my God, they're trying to hurt Saka. Of course I didn't. They weren't. It's football.
Look,
Terry, I see
I
Jack
get that.
Grealish get fouled constantly every single game he plays. Yeah, every single game. Kevin De Bruyne gets fouled a lot. Neymar gets fouled a lot. Alexis Sanchez used to get fouled a lot. Eden Hazard used to get chopped down every week. Right. The fact is, when you're playing in a position on the pitch that is a dangerous attacking position, and you are a very good footballer, you are going to get a little bit more rough and tumble, maybe. Right now, when you're playing against a team that are fighting for relegation, their manager's probably saying to them in the dressing room at the Emirates, go out there, make it known from early that you're there, and make your man know that you're there. Yeah, we all know what goes on in dressing rooms, Terry. We all know that they're going to say, go and stick one on him, let him know he's there. We heard Graham Souness talking about it with Lisandro Martinez and Mohamed Salah the other day. Yeah, you did a video on it. Do you know what I'm saying? So, you know, it didn't see any Liverpool fans or Liverpool journalists coming out crying that Mohamed Salah keeps getting fouled. So why is it it's this player,
Gooners are obviously
when he's been fouled less than all them players you've just
I
read
understand.
out.
I understand that. I also understand why Arsenal fans are doing it, and it's actually a smart tactic from Arsenal fans, and I'll tell you as to why. Because but Fergie was a master at doing this. Klopp did it a couple of years ago to Man United when we were getting lots of penalties. You sow the seed. So if Arsenal fans and fan accounts create a noise, create a buzz, get the message out there, it will consciously with some and subconsciously with others sink into the mind of referees. I can almost guarantee you the next bad foul on Saka results in a red card. But what does that red card do in that game? It gives Arsenal an advantage. This is all about fans, and I back them for this.
You're telling me that the FA and the Premier League are sitting online looking at Arsenal fans crying like little girls and then going, oh, next time Saka gets fouled, we'll send him on. Come on, Terry.
Yes. No, they are. But
you actually believe that the refs and the FA and the Premier League are looking at all these tweets from baby Arsenal fans and saying next time Saka gets a bad foul, we'll send. No, come on.
Let me explain it to you. Bro, no, listen, 100%. 100%.
I need to open that blind a minute, yeah? 2 seconds.
I know you can hear me. 100%. Right? 100%. I'm not suggesting these referees are going to sit there and read every single tweet that everybody puts out, but they will undoubtedly see the articles, hear the airwaves, because they listen and watch this stuff. The FA and the Premier League, people that work there listen to this stuff. Of course they do. It creates pressure. And Arsenal fans are just trying to do everything they can to create an advantage. And I'll tell you why they're trying to do it. Because you guys, you won again at the weekend. You guys can genuinely win the league this year. So why not do everything in your power to create every advantage possible that best suits your team? Because football, I always say it for years, football fans don't care about fairness. They care about their team winning. No one cares about diving unless it's against your team. No one cares about bad refereeing decisions unless it's against your team. No one cares about the fouls in games as long as they're not going against you or hurting your players. None of us care. What we actually care about is our team winning at all costs. And what you've been asking for, a league from Arsenal Football Club is, or what you spout around football, elite level sport is about winning only. Arsenal fans are trying to do everything they can to win. And for me, you can win the league this year. And these are little mind games and little tricks that your manager, your players, your fans all need to perpetuate and do. How do I know this? Fergie did. If Fergie was around with social media in its heyday, like now, social media in its heyday, every time Fergie called out a referee or a club, we'd have been on that ref, we'd have been on that club, we'd have been applying pressure. And I think Arsenal fans are doing a great job.
I just think they're a big bunch of babies. I can't lie. Like, real talk. I think they're a bunch of babies. And I asked this a lot, right? And I've still not got, and listen, I've said this multiple times. All the people that come and watch me every week that don't like it, hello to you. Big up for watching again. Getting your dopamine fix. Flying comments in the chat that you don't like me, but you're still here. But thank you. Appreciate it. I say this every week, Terry, right? Arsenal fans are sitting there laughing at every other fan base at the moment because we're top of the table. So then you ask them a question. Okay, are we going to win the league? Oh, no, the aim's top 4. Okay, so why are you laughing at other teams while we're 3-month champions then? Yeah, because that's just pointless. If you don't actually believe that we have a chance to go and win it, and we should be going to win it by going to get better players in January to make the squad better than the current squad, why are you sitting laughing at other teams and their fans? Yeah, because if you then get to ask them, where do you think we're going to finish? Are we going to win it? No, top 4 is the aim. Okay, so we're top of the league, which is above the aim then. But now you don't want to continue to be above the aim. You just think, oh, well, it don't matter. We'll finish 4th. If you also ask them, when is the end date for this process? Not one person will give you an answer, Terry. Not one. So when they're sitting there crying about referees, crying about VAR, crying about other players doing this and other players doing that, it's all bollocks. Yeah, because they don't believe after crap they're saying. They're only jumping on a narrative. Yeah, that narrative now is because Saka gets overly fouled. No, he doesn't. You've just read out all these other players in the Premier League that get fouled 2-3 times more than him a game. Don't see any other fan base crying about this. I don't see any fan base crying. You even read out Jesus gets fouled double the amount of times in a game. So why was the article about Bukayo Saka? Oh, because Bukayo Saka went off injured. Nobody's talking about the fact that Mikel Arteta kept him on the pitch for 13 minutes whilst he was injured. Yeah, when he clearly did not want the ball. And he was hobbling around the pitch for 12, 13 minutes. Nobody's talking about that, which could have done him longer injury than the actual injury.
I get that, Lee, and I understand your gripes with that element. But back to like Arsenal fans not wanting to say they can win the league. Everyone will have a different reason. Some people don't want to get clipped. Some people don't want their tweets screenshotted. I think some people don't want to jinx it. I'm a bit of a superstitious person. Like, I don't often like to predict my team's going to win a game.
Like one of these girls that believes in like star signs and stuff, Terry.
Well, no, yeah, but I do when it comes to sport.
I don't want to jinx it by saying we can win it.
Lee, but you're asking why people don't say things, and I'm giving you like a list of examples, and there'll be different reasons. But on Arsenal, I think most Arsenal fans in their heart of heart know they can win the league, and I believe you can win the league. You do need to spend some money in January as part of my belief in that. But you're 12 games into the season. You've had one half where you play, a couple of halves where you weren't great, and a loss to Man United in a game where you did some good things. You're getting better. The response this weekend to Nottingham Forest was excellent, especially smashing them in the second half the way that you did. Yeah. The bounce back from all the nonsense. And I know I asked the questions for a few weeks, and often people get confused that when I ask a question, it isn't me making a statement. It's me asking a question based on what's trending. It was a nonsense that you were fatigued, an absolute fallacy. You just had a bad couple of games. In the same way that City's little poor run of form went unnoticed. They beat Brighton, yes, but people forget that in a run of 4 games, they only won 1, and they failed to score in 2 Champions League games. But suddenly Arsenal have a bad second half against Southampton and a bad second half against Leeds. Suddenly at the world,
that comparison is
just
ridiculous.
Title contenders 100%.
That comparison is just pathetic. Real talk.
Why?
Yeah, Man City have got a better squad, and they've done it for years under that same manager. They've won 4 out of the last 5 Premier Leagues, Terry. So if they have a little blip, it's only a little blip. That team will go on a 16, 17, 19, 20 game straight wins streak here, right? So to compare that to Arsenal having 7 bad games, 5 in a row in the Europa League and 2 in the Premier League, is completely stupid, because Arsenal have proven under this manager multiple times that when they have a bad streak, ultimately, it is a bad streak and it will stay a bad streak. Yes, we bounce back. Perfect team to play against, a team that basically didn't want to come out their half. Yeah, first half, we very, 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 again, nearly gifted them a goal. The same centre-back are called a bozo every week. Passed Jesse Lingard the ball on the penalty spot. Fantastic block from Ben White. If Ben White hadn't blocked that, that's 1 each going in at half-time. So, yes, we went and spanked them. We absolutely fully deserved to spank them. They were shocking. Yeah, we could have had 7 or 8. But let's not compare it to Man City having a blip where they've scored won 1 game out of 4, Terry, because Man City have got a track record under this manager that they can go and do it. And when they have a blip, it is literally they've only won 1 in 4.
So if people were saying, but I get you, if people were saying that Arsenal are falling off during these 5-game period, because we always do, that would make sense as a logical train of thought. But people didn't. It's, they're fatigued. The players have been running to the ground. They've been played too much.
Oh, they have.
They haven't. Not for 12 games into a season. They've been played about the right amount of times. Like, this is what you do. So
no, hold on. Because Saka's played pretty much every minute of every single game this season. Pretty much.
Right.
Yeah. I watched you and a gal having an argument the other day about Eddie Nketiah.
Right.
Why is Eddie Nketiah not starting games?
Because he ain't good enough.
Thank you. So if he ain't good enough, that decision to sign him up based off of 5 goals that took us from 4th to 5th, and give him £100 a week and the king's number, right? Why has nobody called that out then? Because you're sitting there saying that he ain't good enough. Arsenal fans are saying he ain't good enough, but they were all jumping for joy when we signed him up and wasted $5 million a year and gave him Henry's number. So that decision in itself is now looking dumb. But we knew it was going to look dumb because we knew he weren't good enough. But again, the most easily pleased fan base in world sport We're jumping for joy because he scored against Chelsea. Then he scored against another team. Then he scored here, and his goals took us from 4th to 5th, right? So that decision now looks dumb. That 100 grand a week for 4 years, that's 20 million. That 20 million could have gone towards something else at the club that is better, Terry. Somebody that we could have brought in that is better. That could have been a down payment on a player that is better. That could help us go forward, right?
Listen, the Eddie Nketiah thing I get. Like that's a poor decision. And even the best run clubs going through the best moments will make decisions. Let me just say this, though. This is a fact. Out of the top 50 players in the league this year for minutes played,
yeah,
Arsenal only have 2 players, and one of them's your goalkeeper. The other one is Gabriel at the back. So you have 2 players. None of your midfielders and none of your attackers are in the top 50 players with the most minutes in the Premier League this year. So you haven't this idea that you've run every player into the ground 12 games in is a fallacy. And how we know it's a fallacy is
I never said every player. I mentioned Bukayo Saka.
Okay, but I'm talking in generality about people saying, oh, they're fatigued, they're too tired. Have we rotated enough? You've rotated perfectly. And the reason why you've had some of the performances where you've dipped is because you have, especially in the Europa League, is because you didn't start with your main 11. You did rotate people in. And yes, you do need, I think to win the league, you've got to go out in January and buy more. Go and get 2 or 3 players.
In your opinion, what do we need in January? And how much do we need to spend? Where should we be spending?
Oh, I mean, the price of it, I haven't really thought about. I think you need more in the attack. So, for instance, another striker or inside forward that can bring you some goals. Because I don't think Eddie Nketiah personally is good enough. Personally, I think you also need to look at your midfield as well. So, I would be walking down the road and knocking on the door again of Leicester and looking at the Yuri Tielemans situation. You've got players out there. I know he's an attacker here. I'll go back to them. The Pedro Netos of this world. I think Lissandro Trossard should be somebody that you visit and take a look at as an example as well. I think those areas there, I think Ruben Neves could be a very good buy for you in that midfield area. If you went out and bought Yuri Tielemans and Pedro Neto in January, that could give you enough creativity, enough cover, and give you enough goals. Because I think Pedro Neto, I get the feeling with Pedro Neto, a little bit like Jota. I think if he steps up to a better quality team,
he's a brilliant footballer, mate.
Yeah, I know you.
So
if you bought those 2 players collectively, would probably cost you about 80, 90 million to get. That could be enough for you to go on and win the league, and then maybe a third option somewhere else in the team as well. Maybe.
Okay. Now tell me, do you think Arsenal are going to do that?
Well, but that isn't my question. Isn't
no, I'm asking your opinion on it. Do you think Arsenal will go and do any business like that?
So on that, I am not convinced the Cronkies and the owners will do that for your manager. However, that doesn't take away from the fact that if Arteta is given that, I believe he and your team can win. So the pressure from let me just finish my point though. If you Arsenal fans shouldn't be putting pressure on Arteta here. You should be putting a pressure on the board to spend the money. And if they don't spend it...
Thank you. I've been saying this all season, but I'm negative, Terry.
That's not negative. Negative is down.
Well, apparently it is, because you should shut up. We're top of the league. We're top of the group, but you're still digging out this, and you're still digging out that, and you're still digging out this. If we win the league, you'd still moan that it weren't a good season.
Yeah, but Lee, you know you're tainted, right? People, Lee,
Terry, I couldn't care less. After the league, can't stand me, but they come and watch every week. I don't care. It's not stopping me coming back next Tuesday, is it?
Yeah. Was this a comment here? Says, stop being negative, Terry. Arsenal will win the league. Get in the bin with your negative views. Listen, Tony, listen, my guy. Listen, I think you can win the league, but I do think you need to buy in January to do it. By the way, if you're ahead of City by 4, 5, 6 points in January, you know they're going to buy, right? They will look at an area in their team and go, right, we need more, because they want to win the league. So
let's assume that Arsenal don't go out and do what you said in terms of buying a winger and a midfielder, yeah? Right, of a decent standard. We're apparently linked to another Brazilian, by the way, who's apparently flying to England to sort out the deal. Well, that's not how football transfer works, surely. What, he's just going to turn up like Peter Odd and Winky and hope Arsenal sign him? Like, come on. Yeah, so whoever put that story out, you're an idiot. Yeah, yes, we might go and buy that guy, but he ain't just jumped on a plane and landed at the Emirates and waiting for Arteta to sign him, is he? Yeah, so let's not be done with this, right? That guy, yeah, will now be lauded up as the greatest Brazilian footballer in living history by our fan base, right? Again, we've already got Marquinhos that was lauded up because he scored and cried after a Europa League goal. Well, we've not seen him since, mate, right? El Nenny's back, by the way. El Nenny's back in training. So there's a midfielder that we ain't going to go and buy now because we've got El Nenny back, like a new signing. Smith Rowe's coming back in January, or December. So that's another one. Oh, we can use him to push towards the second half of the season. So that's now 2 players we ain't going to go and buy because we've got 2 players coming back. Right. So there's your 2 players, Terry. Zinchenko, the man that was only supposed to be missing 2 Ukraine games, one of which he was suspended for. That was 10, 11 games ago in the Premier League and Arsenal games in total. If he misses 2 more games, that is the equal longest he's ever been out in England for either Man City or Arsenal off of 1 injury. How? It's a little calf injury. How is it that nobody's talking about that? Yeah, nobody's talking about Arteta said he was out for the Ukraine 2 international games. Ukraine never bothered picking him, said have a rest. We were told he was coming back after that. Arteta sat in a press conference before Southampton and said that he's always available. Well, how comes he ain't been in squads then? He's missed 11 or 12 games, something like that. So when he comes back, that's now 3 players.
He's played 5 games, so he's missed 7 in the Prem.
Plus the Europa League.
Plus Europa League, yeah. You know, I get.
So there's another 5 games.
You've got Reece James Reece Nelson came on firing. That could be an option for you.
So there's 4 players, and you think we're going out in January because this fan base will spin it, because the journalists will spin it, because the club will spin it. Our club has already come out and said previously multiple times we are not just going to go and buy any player, which is so subjective anyway. We're going to go and find players that fit our model. So not one person who sits and asks questions to this manager has then said, so what's the model then? What's the profile of player you were looking for? Nobody has asked him that. So when we've got Reece Nelson come off the bench, now our fans are jumping for joy, going, give him a contract. Yeah, he scored more goals than Jadon Sancho this season. Woohoo! Do you think Sancho's lost sleep over that? No. Yeah, but now Reece Nelson, who was injured, otherwise we would have got rid of him in the summer, is now the shining light, the next Raheem Sterling, and going to bag us loads of goals to lift us a title, Terry, or get us in the top 4. So there's the winger that we're not going to go and buy in the January window, because Reece has now scored 2 goals against Nottingham Forest. El Nenny's back, which means that we ain't going to go and buy a party backup because we've got El Nenny back. Yeah. Now Smith Rowe's going to be coming back. So now we don't need to go and get Martinelli cover because Smith Rowe will be back. Now Zinchenko's going to be back whenever that may be. So there's 4 players that we've been without for most of the season that are going to be coming back in January or around December, January time. And you think this club is going to go out there and do any business? They're not. They'll go out there and buy one player that's a kid that's Brazilian, and is probably mates with Edu's son or something, right? And we'll go and get him in, right? Other than that, I doubt we're going to do anything, Terry. If anything, I could see us getting rid of players. Cedric Suarez being one of them.
Maybe.
Right?
And bruv, listen, I just want to say, I want to interject really quickly because I know there isn't a lot of time left. And I want to say this, that if that happens, Arsenal fans should be frustrated and they should condemn the club and fully back the manager and say, hang on a minute, this guy had us, this guy has got you right now into a title race. Give him what he needs to go to that next level. There's no doubt. I want to do some of these super chats because I know we're running out of time here.
Yeah, man.
Hey, Terry and Lee, do you think Rashford, Tony, Maddison will get into the England World Cup squad? Also think they should also pick Justin from Leicester, Duncan Byrne. All those players aren't getting in. There's no way that Southgate's going to
the only one who gets in out of that that's nailed on is Rashford.
Rashford will get in there. He's scoring again. There's no doubt. I think he'll leave Maddison out. Tony's got half a chance. Duncan Byrne,
Justin. I don't think he has. He took him. He took him on the last international break and didn't play him, did he?
Play him, yeah. Clinton here says getting fouled isn't the issue. The issue is that the players aren't booked for reckless fouls, and that should apply to all players, not just Saka. Look, I agree with you on that, Clinton. I mean, Man United should have had Skamaka should have been sent off against Man United. He was booked, and then he had a high foot in the head of Lissandro.
On that basis, though, if you go back to the North London derby, Gabriel Jesus didn't get booked at all in that game, and he should have been booked at least 4 times. So it works both ways.
Terry, you are wrong. John Henry is worth 3.6 billion, and most of it is tied in sports assets he owns. So FSG, the group, are worth 10 bill, and I do understand that net worth also includes assets, but that is also the same for you do realize like the Sheikh doesn't have 12 billion pounds in a bank account. A lot of that is investments, stocks and shares and properties. It is the same for all of them, my friend. And equally, that amount of worth, you can borrow money at exceedingly low interest rates. And by the way, if I'm a billionaire and I've got £1 billion of cash and I have £1 billion of assets, I'm worth £2 billion. It is more financially viable and cheaper for me to borrow against my asset and pump that money into a club and pay the loan back than it is to take money out of my bank accounts. Generally, the yield you'll get on those kind of cash balances is more than those billionaires can borrow money for. So you might be getting 3%, 4% yield on your assets under management with a bank, but yet you could borrow now that have changed it now because the base rate's gone up so much. But we were doing loans with people like that in the private bank at like 0.15 above base when the base rate was 0.5%. So you're paying like 0.6, 0.7% interest versus losing 4% interest on your accounts. So there is no excuse, my bro. The financial experts have debunked this many, many times. Lee, if Arsenal finish in the top 4 and you strengthen this and you strengthen the summer, would be getting out the Champions League next season be a must, or would it be a bonus? Getting out of the Champions League? You mean getting out the group stages? I think he means there. Yeah, that's a must.
I've seen us do that for how many years? Like I say this every time, Terry. Right? This whole fetish with getting top 4 is a narrative that was spun by Arsene Wenger, who was culpable for lowering the standards of this football club. You know, even to the point now where he's lowered the standards of pretty much every top 6 team other than Man City. Yeah, because every top 6 team other than Man City are more interested in just getting top 4. The aim of elite sport is not to finish third loser. Yeah, and all the people that are sitting there's a guy in the chat that said, yeah, the fact that Arsenal was sat top after 13 games shows that Arteta has proved you wrong. What has he won this season? I've seen Ole Gunnar Solskjaer be top of the table, mate.
Like, yeah, anymore. No, I hear you on that.
Yeah, and this is the thing, right? If we finish, let's say if we finish second, yeah, don't win any cups, we finish second, our fans will jump around like it's the best thing ever. Okay, so we've gone back to the level we were 6 years ago when Leicester won the league, right? And we finished second. That was deemed not good enough at the time, which is why we wanted Wenger gone. So now we're going to jump for joy, rinse and repeat on a big circle, spin the wheel again for another 6 years. Let's just get in the Champions League, get out the group, get pammed. Go back in the Champions League, get out of the group, get pammed.
Yeah.
It's boring.
I get that, mate. I really do. And I think that if Arsenal are in the Champions League next year, they have to. If they don't get out of the group stage,
but Terry, this thing is
Arsenal are gigantic.
I see people sit there and say, if you get in the Champions League, you can attract better players. Absolute rubbish. We were in the Champions League for 20 odd years. Tell me 5 world-class players we signed on the day that we signed them. They were already world-class. Tell me who. You can say Mesut Ozil. You can say Alexis Sanchez. Who else?
Mate, I totally
Mustafi, Sanogo, yeah, players like that when we were in the Champions League, yeah, like Kolasinac and players like that. So let's not pretend that if we get in the Champions League, all of a sudden we can flip a switch and now world-class players are falling over to get in the door. Absolute garbage, because the manager we had then did actually have the pull to attract world-class footballers.
No, I totally, mate. I get what you're saying there, 100%. Geordie Tune for Life, I want to say that isn't what the Glazers do. The Glazers borrow money against the football club's assets and then make the football club pay it back out of its turnover. They don't do that. So again, very big fundamental difference between those two things. Some more super chats here. Nice here, Terry. Lee, which players do you want Arsenal to get in January? So I know Neto was. We already kind of answered that question.
I want Tony Madison and Calcedo, or Salcedo, however you say his name.
It's Calcedo.
150 million quid. Yeah, and we're in a title race.
There we go. Lee, all your arguments are based off of if, buts, and maybes. Just chill and wait and see what happens in January.
All of my arguments are based off of the last 19 years of this club taking the wholesale piss out of fans and fans absolutely lapping it up. Yeah, I've seen Arsenal top of the league in January. I've seen Arsenal top of the league in February. I've seen top of the league in March. I've seen Arsenal top of the league at Christmas. I've seen Arsenal have the best run from New Year's Eve all the way through till the end of the season. I've seen Arsenal compete and then fall away after 25 games. 24 games in 2014-15. So my arguments are based off of what I've witnessed as an Arsenal fan since we've moved into this stadium. So great, we're top of the table, fantastic. Now go and win it. Yeah, now go and win it. Go and do what's required. The fans are not going to stick it on the owner, so the owner's not going to spend. So rinse and repeat, well done. And if we finish 5th, this fan base will come up with the amount of excuses that it'll be a mountain of excuses, Terry, but they will not stick it on anyone. They'll just say, well, we showed that we could compete for half a season. So now if we give him another 10 flipping billion quid,
I get
in 16 years, we might actually win it. Like, come on. Nobody in this chat, Terry, in over an hour has sat there, and I asked a question an hour ago, or whenever it was, when is the end date for this process? When is it acceptable to say, no, we should be challenging now? Our technical director, Edu, came out on the 25th of July this year and sat on Sky Sports and said, yeah, we should be going for league titles now. That's our technical director saying that.
Yeah. Mate,
so why is it our technical director
totally get that.
I'm saying that, but everyone else, Ian Wright, 4 of our first team squad, the journalist, and all of the fan base are saying, no, top 4. Well, hang on, that's not in line with what our technical director's saying.
I get it. I get it, and I know the viewers get it. I just want to get through these last few super chats before you've got to shoot off. I'm really sorry. Just very quick answer on this one. If we win the Europa League and get top 4, is that a successful season?
Well, yeah, you've won a trophy.
There we go. Notion that Arsenal are clear of everybody is true and false. Yes, they are the best team so far, but yet checking notes, only 8 points ahead of 5th place Manchester United is what Joshua Jack has got to say. We had this super chat that says, Lee, is Jesus a world-class player? I know Lee will hate this opinion, but Arsenal need players like Salah and Bruno who are clinical along with Jesus.
No, he's not world-class. He's a very good player, and I like him. I've liked him at City. I like him at Arsenal, but he ain't world-class.
There's a positive thing Lee said there. Screenshot it. Lee, I don't understand you in this context. Your prediction is we are not making top 4. So why are we talking winning the league?
Because that's the aim of elite sport, mate. The aim of elite sport is to win the league. We're sat top of the league. I don't believe we will win the league. And that is based off of the previous of this owner, the previous of this fan base, and the previous of this football club absolutely bottling everything. So go out and do what's required now to go and win the league. Even with a manager that's got no track record of winning a league title, no track record of even getting in the top 4, no track record of even beating Unai Emery's points tally in the Premier League, with a better squad. Yeah, the fan base, even if we finished 8th this season, this fan base would be absolutely rolling around like a pig in shit. Yeah, because they fancy Arteta and he can't do no wrong. So this is why I keep saying, and still nobody has put it in the chat, when is the end date for the process?
I get that. Tell if Eric Ten Hag gets you the Prem or other trophies, will be classed as a United legend, the same bracket as Fergie. You know, to be in the same bracket as Fergie, you've got to achieve very, very similar to him. Fergie's in a bracket by himself. He'd have to win 10 plus Premier Leagues, 2 plus Champions Leagues, probably a treble in there as well. So it could be, yeah, it's going to take more than the Prem and a few trophies. It will take multiple Prems, multiple Champions Leagues to be a legend of this club. Listen, Lee, always a pleasure to speak, my friend. I know you're shooting off to a show now with you and Rant, so go and check that out on Lee Gunner's channel, people. We're back tonight after the Champions League games, about 9:45, 9:50 when the games end. We'll be going live, so make sure you're with the Terrace. George is in the studio with me tonight. Until next time, everybody, take care of yourselves. Goodbye. God bless, and we'll see you all again very, very soon.